First tonight, the Lloyd Rayney verdict. A Supreme Court judge declaring the case against him lacked crucial evidence as he cleared the barrister of both murder and manslaughter over the death of his wife, Corryn. Jamie Freestone was in court for the climax to 5 years of investigations and legal proceedings.
A triumphant Lloyd Rayney emerged from court into a massive media scrum. Surrounded by his legal team and his 15-year-old daughter by his side, the 50-year-old remained composed and in control.
It's been 5 years since Sarah and Caitlin have been without their mum. They haven't been treated well by many people. But apart from that, they still don't know, and we still don't know, what happened to Corryn, and that is a terrible tragedy.
After a 3-month trial and 2 weeks of deliberations, Justice Brian Martin acquitted him of willful murder and manslaughter.
Despite the best funded investigation, despite unlimited, apparently, resources at the disposal of those people investigating, this is still unsolved. And that's an extremely hard thing for my family to accept.
For several kilometres, the barrister was followed to his law chambers, the spectacle prompting well wishes from bystanders.
Congratulations, Lloyd. Hang on, guys.
But Mr Rayney remained reluctant to comment any further.
I'm trying to get through a packed crowd, that's what I'm trying to do. It's my immediate thought.
For Corryn Rayney's family, her sister and father, the verdict was a devastating blow, but they expressed their thanks to the police investigators.
For their determination and perseverance over the last 5 years in seeking justice for Corryn. Our gratitude and thanks also goes to Mr Aegis and the prosecution team for finally giving Corryn a voice.
Sharon Coutinho said their quest for justice will continue.
We are grateful for the tremendous support we have received from the wider community. Their words of kindness have been a great source of comfort.
In his judgment, Justice Martin said the state case was full of improbabilities and uncertainties. Crucial evidence was lacking and its absence was telling. The lack of logic in certain areas was obvious. He said the fact Mr Rayney had engaged in discreditable conduct couldn't be used to reason that he was a man who might kill his wife. Immediately before announcing his verdict, the judge fought back tears as he singled out Corryn Rayney's father, Ernest. He said he knew the verdict would upset some, but Mr De Silva had behaved impeccably and with dignity throughout the trial.
Jamie Freestone joins us now live from Lloyd Rayney's Como home. And Jamie, Lloyd Rayney was obviously relieved as he left court. How has he spent the rest of his day now that he's been cleared?
Well, Craig, about 2 hours after the verdict was handed down, he arrived here at his Como home. And there were many people gathered here. Not long after the verdict was handed down, friends, family and colleagues started gathering here at the home. It seems preparations for this get-together started taking place even before the verdict was handed down. This morning there was a party hire company delivering drinking glasses to the home some 2 hours before the judge announced his decision. The people who've gathered here this afternoon have told us that this is not a celebration but more a gathering, a get-together to remember their much-loved Corryn.
We have lost our sister-in-law, our family member. She's the mother of my nieces.
Get on with his life, enjoy it, look after his 2 kids like he has been, and try and get to the bottom of the whole story.
Today marks the close of a long-running murder case. It's one of the most high-profile we've ever seen in WA. Alicia Banner takes a look back at how the events of the past 5 years unfolded.
August 7, 2007, Corryn Rayney disappears after her Tuesday night boot-scooting class in Bentley. 5 days later, Lloyd Rayney fronts the media, appealing for information to help find his wife.
All of us are deeply distressed and extremely concerned for Corryn's welfare.
August 15, an oil leak from Mrs Rayney's car leads police to a bush grave in Kings Park, where they find her body. A month later, Detective Senior Sergeant Jack Lee identifies Mr Rayney as the prime and only suspect.
As a result of further investigations this morning, including the interview of Mr Rayney, he is now a suspect in the murder of his wife.
2008, police lay no charges over Mrs Rayney's death, but they're granted access to interview her daughters. A few months later, Mr Rayney begins defamation action over the prime and only suspect claim. 2009 passes and still no charges. December 8, 2010, more than 3 years after Corryn's body was found, Mr Rayney is arrested in the city on his way to work and charged with the willful murder of his wife. On Christmas Eve, he's granted bail.
I'm really overjoyed at the result, and I look forward to finally being able to prove my innocence.
July 16, Mr Rayney's judge-only trial begins. 3 months later, he's found not guilty of murder and walks free, while the case of who killed Corryn Rayney and why remains unsolved. Alicia Banner, 10 News.
This case has led to big questions about the murder investigation and about the conduct of some WA police officers. As Amelia Brune reports, there are now calls for an independent inquiry and even a royal commission into the murder investigation and how WA police handled it.
It's been one of the biggest court cases in WA history, but today's verdict left those in the legal world questioning its merit.
It was at best a weekend circumstantial case that one may speculate should not ultimately have been brought.
Amid claims of reprehensible conduct by investigating officers and a lack of crucial evidence, it's been labelled an embarrassing day for WA police.
The long and the short of it is that no matter how thorough and intense the police investigation, it has gone wrong.
The 3-month trial has cost WA taxpayers more than $2 million. 100 witnesses were called to give evidence and more than 700 statements and exhibits tendered. Yet Justice Martin still found the case to be flimsy and speculative.
The volume of material is not like anything any of us have ever seen.
The case that Mr Rayney is responsible for the death of his wife has evaporated in a puff of logic.
And with Corryn Rayney's killer still no closer to being identified, there are now calls for an independent inquiry.
It's time that we upped the standards of conduct required from these kinds of investigations.
We are almost desperate to get an independent team in from outside the state to take all the information. This can be solved. It's very, very solvable.
WA Police declined to comment on whether the investigation will be reopened. Amelia Brune, 10 News.
Late today, police issued a statement. In it, they say that there will be an assessment of Justice Martin's comments regarding the prosecution case. They say it will also assess the judge's comments regarding the conduct of some of the WA police officers. They say there'll be no further comment made until the appeal period ends. And of course, the DPP does have 21 days to consider whether they want to lodge an appeal against today's outcome. And as for Lloyd Rayney, it's not the end of his legal wrangles. His defamation suit, of course, is still pending. He claims he was defamed by police when they named him the prime and only suspect. So we're yet to see whether he'll proceed with that defamation suit now that he's been cleared of these charges today. And of course, he still faces a Commonwealth trial. He's accused of tapping the family home phone here in Como, and so that he could listen in to his wife's conversations during their marriage breakdown. That trial has to be before a jury. There's no date set for that yet. We're yet to see what will happen with that. And as for Lloyd Rayney's legal career, we don't know where it will take him.